What's up, folks? Alex from Swamp Rat Fishing here, and today we're gonna go over Swim Jig versus Chatterbait. Now, my verdict might be a little bit surprising, so let's crack that cold, frosty beverage. Let's get into it. All right, folks, Swim Jig versus Chatterbait. Which is better? Which one should you throw in what conditions? Let's break all this down here. All right, so first up, let's talk about the Swim Jig, the humble Swim Jig. It's very much like your normal jig, stout hook normally, brush guard. Big difference, it's gonna be that head, that triangle, that conical swimming jig head, right? So this is gonna help this thing stay up and stay flat up on plane, and it's gonna help impart action. Not a lot to it, very simple bait. Skirt, hook, brush guard, 90-degree line tie, your swim jig. On the other end of it, you have your chatterbait. So this chatterbait here, so you're gonna see the main difference is this blade in the front of it, right? So as it's moving through the water, this blade's kicking, adding vibration. It's also got an archy, kind of like a casting, archy style head to it. But which one is better? All right, so where should you throw either one of these baits, right? Where should you throw these? You should throw these around cover, submerged grass, timber, maybe. You can kind of throw them anywhere, throw them up shallow, get a heavier weight, start throwing these deeper. All of them are gonna have a trailer on it. We're gonna talk about that a little bit later, but throw a trailer on them and chuck and wind. You can also yo-yo them, specifically on the chatterbait. Kind of let that thing drop all the way to the bottom, rip up, let it fall back down, kind of like a lipless crankbait. But they're all gonna you wanna fish next to cover or in the cover itself. All right, so let's start going through these pros and cons of each bait. Again, this is the one, I mean, everybody throws a chatterbait. This is taking the fishing world by storm within the past 10 years. Z-Man is making a killing on these. They've got so many different models of them, some on the normal end, some on the really high end, like the jackhammer. But I am starting to see a resurgence of the swim jig. Bill Lowen just won a Elite Series event throwing a swim jig. So let's do a little pros and cons. Heavy cover. By heavy cover, I mean like thick grass, thick pads. I'm giving the edge to the swim jig. The chatterbait, as I drop it on myself, the chatterbait is good in that cover. It's good in there. Rip this thing out, get that thing to flutter out and then kind of kill it real quick and then start your retrieve back again. It's awesome. But if you start getting into thick things, pads, thick pads, really thick grass, all that stuff kind of binds up around this blade. Then the blade will stop vibrating and all you have is this moving through the water. Swim jig, you don't have that problem. Do the same thing, rip this thing out, kill it for a second, start reeling back in to get that thing back on top, and then it'll start diving back into it, rip it back out. I think it works great. So I'm gonna give heavy cover. I'm gonna say that the swim jig is better than the chatterbait. Next up, dirty water. Swim jig, you can get them in these great colors. I really like some of these darker profiles. For me, when that water gets stained and muddy, when it comes to swim jig fishing, I want either dark or just plain out white, everything white on that bait. But it's not as good as that chatterbait. That chatterbait in muddy water with that blade flicking back and forth, it's gonna help call in those fish. They're gonna feel that vibration that the jig is giving out. So I'm gonna give dirty water, gotta throw that chatterbait. All right, let's talk about some types of cover. We talked about wood. I don't know what it is about a chatterbait. It does not deflect well off wood, at least for me. Again, and all these opinions are just mine. I am putting this out on the internet, so everybody's gonna have an opinion about it. These are just my opinions. Chatterbait, I find that this thing hangs up every time it can on wood and snags into it. Swim jig, on the other hand, with that head, finds a way to help deflect off that wood. It's awesome. I'm gonna be chucking this one in. I think the swim jig wins out when dealing with timber. And we talked about it a little bit earlier, trailers. Swim jig trailer. Everybody's got their own feeling on it. A lot of people like to put the Rage Menace grub or a straight paddle tail on the back. I personally like to throw something with not a lot of action. I want something a little limp behind this because I want this to be the focus. I want this. You throw something back, I feel like it throws the cadence off almost on the chatterbait. While the swim jig, you can throw any kind of trailer you want on the back. You can throw your paddle tails. You can throw your Rage Menace style baits, your Rage baits, something with a lot of action to help throw it off. Because you got to remember, with this one, you don't have the blade, right, to give you action. Your trailer's going to help with a lot of that. And your retrieve's going to help with a lot of that. So you've got to pay closer attention when using the swim jig on what trailer you're going to use. But, and I'm going to give a ding for the swim jig when it comes to trailers, right? Because you can mimic most bait fish with this way easier than you can with this. What I mean by that is you could throw the craw on here and you could throw it rigged vertically, the claws vertically, and that's going to look like a bluegill or a small crappie pushing through a lot easier than it is on the chatterbait. You can throw your paddle tail on this. You can throw a worm on it. I've had success throwing that quiver worm from Missile Baits, throwing that on the back of this, that 4.5, and it gives it a lot of extra secondary action. So trailers, I think that's gonna go to the swim jig for me. And then I think my last category that I wanna go off of is active fish. Swim jig's good for getting a fish to bite. It really is. It's a very finesse power fishing tactic. But hands-on, if you're looking for just straight up active fish, if you are just burning down a bank, if you're in a bass boat and you are just trying to run as much water as possible, I think the chatterbait's gonna be your better pick for that. Because you can chuck and wind, and this is, if there are fish that are super active and ready to bite, this thing is gonna call them in and they are gonna bite it. Swim jig, you can do the same thing, but you're not gonna be able to call fish from as far with the swim jig. You're not getting that vibration. That's just not the action that the swim jig is made for. All right, so kind of a shorter video. I just kind of wanted to break down swim jig versus chatterbait. For me, it's a swim jig. I throw the swim jig all the time. It is my #1 moving bait to go to, is that swim jig. So hopefully you guys got something out of it. Leave down in the comments, which one do you like? What do you like better? You like the chatterbait or you like the swim jig? Let me know down below, and I hope you guys have a good one.